Hello, my name is Jenna Berndt, and I am an 8th grade science teacher at Red Top Middle School in Emerson, Georgia. This data overview is intended for the 8th grade teachers, the ELL and special education teachers, administrators, learning support specialists, and the instructional lead teacher. The purpose of this project is to discuss and analyze 3 years of 8th grade milestone data at Red Top Middle School compared to the district and state performance to discover trends, areas of strengths and weaknesses, how it aligns to the school improvement plan, and to develop an action plan to address any issues. All of the data was provided by the Governor's Office of Student Achievement. Here's a percentage breakdown of the school demographics over the past 3 years. Our transiency rate is 28.1%. I have a few graphical representations of this table in the next slides. Here I wanted to point out the very high percentage of low socioeconomic students, as well as the growing numbers of students with disabilities and limited English language proficiency. Here's the dropout rate for the past 5 years. Students are reported as dropouts if they leave school for either getting expelled, arrested, pregnant, or removed from the roster for being absent 10 consecutive days. And the dropout rate is calculated by the number of students with the dropout withdrawal code divided by the total number of students. The 3 years that are starred correlate to the years of milestone data that I analyzed. This shows the percentage of students at Red Top with chronic absenteeism. And chronic absenteeism is defined as a student missing 10% or more of enrolled days. As you can see, in all 4 years of data that were available, we had a higher percentage of students with chronic absenteeism than the district, which has a higher rate than the state. We have 44 teachers at Red Top, which compromises 85% of the staff. 75% are females, and the average years of experience is 16. Here is a comparison of the student and teacher race and ethnicity breakdown. They are pretty similar. This is the past 3 years CCRPI score for our school. As you can see, Red Top is lower than the district, which is lower than the state all 3 years. The data that I utilized was from the Georgia Milestone End of Grade and Course tests for 8th grade from the years 2017 to 2019. First, we have math. As you can see, in all 3 areas, our school, Red Top, is lower than the district and the state significantly. Here in social studies, the gap is not as great, but still lower than both district and state. Here, this is English language arts. It shows that we did have a good year in 2018, clearly, and both the prior graphs as well. 2018 showed higher scores, and this one they actually did better than both the state and the district in 2018. Here in science, this is 8th grade on level, no honor students. So there's a very large gap in the science on-level performance compared to the district and state. Now, if we look at the EOC scores that the gifted and honor students take, this correlation is not too bad. We were lower in 17 and 18th, but then again, just like EOA, we were higher in 2018. Here, this is the average for all 4 subjects. The reason science is so low is because it does not take into account the physical science end of course scores. If we were to add that in, This is what it would look like. The questions that I had were, why did all three subjects perform the best in 2017-18 school year? What was special about that year? And why did all three subjects perform the lowest in the 2018-19? Since I'm a science teacher, I wanted to look a little bit more into depth with the EOG scores by achievement level. I found this really shocking, that this such large percentage of students being beginner learners in the area of science. Although I wasn't here this year, it's clear that I'm going to have to use effective teaching methods to really amp up the rigor and help my students score higher and become better in the area of proficiency. Here's the end of course, and looks a lot better, but however, you got to take into account this is all the gifted students in this group. Here I looked at the 3 years, the overall average percent proficient or above in all 4 subject areas, economically disadvantaged versus non-economically disadvantaged, and you can see in all 3 years the non-economically disadvantaged students outperformed the economically disadvantaged. And again, since I'm a science teacher, I wanted to look at the percent proficiency and above in science. And again, you can see the trend all 3 years. Economically disadvantaged students had lower performance than non-economically disadvantaged. Here we have the percent proficient English language learners versus non-English language learners. And this shows you that the ELL students were significantly less proficient than non-ELL. This was the only year that was available just for science, but it showed again the same trend. This one was the most shocking to me. When I looked at the data for this percentage of students that scored proficient or higher on the 8th grade EOG, there were no students with disabilities who showed proficiency on the science milestone. And this is a really big problem. So overall, the areas of strengths and weaknesses, ELA and honors physical science had the closest alignment to the district and state averages. The scores were highest in all subject areas in 2017 and 18. Furthermore, the ELA scores were higher that year than the state and district averages. The weaknesses, all content area scores, especially in the area of science, are significantly lower than the district and state averages. Only 5% of our ELL students were at proficiency or above in all 3 years of data, and there were no students with disabilities that were proficient in science. Lastly, the percentage of students with chronic absenteeism is consistently higher than the district and state levels, and we also have a high transiency rate. How does this correlate to the school improvement plan? Well, our school improvement plan overarching need number 3 says that students are not showing necessary growth on MAP and milestone assessments. And although I was not able to get a hold of the MAP scores, it surely does. I have the data to show that we are not showing that growth or proficiency on the milestones, and there needs to be strategies and a plan in place to resolve that. So our next steps, the action plan. We want to improve milestone scores in all subject areas, especially in science, by utilizing effective teaching methods supported by research. Teach test-taking strategies, allow time to review the standards before taking the exams, provide professional development on ELL's teaching strategies and rigor, include ELL and special education teachers in content collaborative meetings, work on filling the gaps for our transient students, and try to lower student chronic absenteeism by rewarding perfect attendance. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my analysis. I hope you found my presentation informative and insightful.